Hello and welcome to the programme. I'm David Holmes. My guest tonight is Jen-Irishu. She's an author, a speaker, heart and soul counsellor, and a workshop facilitator. She's speaking to me from a home in Brisbane, Australia. So welcome to the programme, Jen. Thank you very much for joining us all the way from Brisbane, Australia.
Thank you, David, for having me. I'm absolutely thrilled.
Yes.
I can't wait. I'm just bursting.
Good. So I wonder if we could discuss just maybe events of your earlier life, that things like what was your first introduction or sense of religion or the sense of the divine? Was that something that your family was into and you went along with? Or?
Well, I was brought up a Catholic, so I guess, my introduction was into the Catholic religion. It wasn't until I actually, at 42, I actually stepped back from the Catholic religion because I was experiencing so much spiritually that I started to, I guess, stop and meditate on the reason why I would have chosen to have come into a Catholic family. And I realised that I have a deep sense of faith, a really deep sense of faith. I think, I was just totally in love with Jesus. I was totally in love with, Mother Mary and the whole aspect of it. I was afraid of God, I must say, because in those days, God was to be feared, not to be loved. And so I was, really petrified that I was going to burn in hell. Another thing I couldn't come to terms with from a young girl was we were taught in the Catholic religion that if a baby died without being baptised, that it went to a place called limbo. And I just couldn't, that just did not gel with me.
Yeah.
That how could this beautiful little soul be put in a place of just to spend eternity, whatever time that is, in a place of nothingness? Yeah. So I really started to question very, very young certain aspects of what I was being taught. I remember saying to my mother, I don't know how old I was, probably about 8, and I said, if God made the world, who made God? And she stopped. We're in the kitchen, and she stopped, and she just said, blind faith, and I said, do I have to be blind to know about this?
Oh, no.
As you would, blind faith. And she just said, no, you don't question things like this. And I said, but I want to question things like this. And I think that's just my nature. I'm one of those, maybe it's a Virgo thing, I don't know. But I do question, different aspects. I question everything really, because if you want the truth and to come home to your own truth, I think you need to question everything in order to, weigh up, is this my truth? Is this really what I want to believe in?
Yeah.
And so then, it wasn't until the passing of someone I loved dearly in 1996, and I went to Mass after he died, and I found absolutely no comfort at all. And I just sat there, just filled with grief, and looked up at Jesus on the cross, and I just said, I can't do this anymore. And from that day on, I decided that I would step back and see what happened. And if I wasn't run over by a train in that week, I might just not go the following week. And then I thought, well, if I'm not run over by a bus the following week. So instead I sat out in my beautiful courtyard amongst all my, nature, my beautiful garden, and I meditated and I prayed. And I found I received so much more from that. I was receiving inner guidance. I was receiving, messages, and, it was just, this is where I want to be.
Yeah, you talked before about why you would chose to be born like that. I mean, were you very aware? Were you always that aware? Because not many people will be that aware so early on in their lives about, and it's something that I'm interested in. I don't understand it, but when awareness that you chose to be born in a certain way, can you explain that?
I had such, from a very, very early age, I was so intuitive, but I didn't understand it.
Yeah.
I had no idea why I was receiving the prophetic dreams I was receiving from I can't tell you how old I was. I was always, although one of 4 children, I was the solitary one. My peace would come. I didn't need to be, be crowded by friends, and I was a bit of a hermit, really, although I was social. But in my hermit times, I connected with the fairies, and I was very, very connected to nature. But I also, getting back to that feeling of why was I born in that Catholic upbringing, I believe now it's because of my connection now with my beautiful soul brother Jesus.
Yeah.
And it's my connection now with his messages, his love, his healing, because I do healing. And, that's, I feel, and my sense of faith, I have an incredible sense of faith. David, my life has been a really difficult life, as many of us have been. But I have experienced a lot in my life. And if I didn't have that sense of faith and hope, I don't think I would have been as open-hearted as I am now. And so I feel that is from, having that sense of prayer. I was sent to a boarding school because I was naughty at high school, and, I was sort of asked to leave. And so Mum and Dad sent me to boarding school with the nuns. And, I was the rebel at boarding school. Once again, I didn't conform. But what boarding school did for me, it protected me. Because I was such a free spirit, I think if I hadn't continued to have that sense, resource trickle education, I don't know where I'd be today. I think I'd be this wild hippie out in, the bush smoking dope. Please don't, ridicule me for saying that. But I really feel, that all my life's journey has been really mapped out. And I feel, this is my thoughts, they say, as human beings, we have been given choice. I personally don't feel I have been given choice in this lifetime.
Yeah.
That's my personal opinion.
Right.
I believe that when I was born, my whole life has been totally mapped out. And every time I want to go off that map, I tell you what, I'm brought pretty much back on very, very quickly.
Someone turns the volume up until you start listening and doing something.
Absolutely. And it's like, I know, here, roadblock. And I can go, oh my God, what are you doing? No, step back. It's all in my time, not yours.
Yeah, you started to talk before about the person close to you had gone. And I know this is a very dramatic time of your life and still continues to influence you. Can you tell us about, how does it put it, her love, who she calls the boy? And can you tell us that story?
The boy was, he was somebody that I met on one sunny day that I didn't even want in my life. At the time, I was in a very, very volatile marriage. As many, you stay in a marriage because you've got children and you want to keep this family unit together. And I did not plan on this great big bear of a man to enter into my life at all. And even though we had this beautiful connection, there was also a lot of guilt attached to, the whole thing. But anyway, to cut a long story short, I was then a single mum, and we reconnected, and we had 3 really lovely years together. And then one night I had a dream that he was going to die. He was not quite 40. I dreamt the night he was going to die on. And in that 3 months between the dream and he actually passed over on that night that I dreamt of, I opened up psychically. It just happened, just boom. Just like that. It was just amazing. A whole new world opened up for me. And I realised it was to prepare me for what was to happen after his death. And so on the night of his passing, I had a girlfriend ask me to go and have dinner with them because everyone thought I was losing my mind. They all my friends just said, look, Jen, you know, you're in serious trouble. You need to see somebody. No, I know this is right. I know this is the truth. And I remember looking up at the stars. It was about 11:30 at night, and it was a beautiful, clear night. And I said to my girlfriend, isn't this too beautiful a night for someone to die on?
Wow.
And I went home. I got into bed. I was just about to go to sleep, and my front door opened, and he walked through my front door. He came into my bedroom. He sat down on my bed, and he asked me to help him. And I said, I can't help you. I'm sorry. You've died. You are dead. And he said, please, Jen, you've got to help me, please. And he stayed with me till about 6 a.m, until the phone rang, and it was a girlfriend to say, have you heard? And I said, yes, I know. I've just had, all this, the last 5.5 hours with him. I realised that the 3 months beforehand was to prepare me for his staying with me after he died, which he did for 4.5 years, and said he would stay with me until he bought me my new one and only. And as the events started to unravel, and as I was experiencing so much from him, it was frightening in one aspect because, to be woken up at night and your room's freezing, like you're in a freezer, freezing cold, this wind whipping through the room, and you're thinking, oh my goodness, what's happening? And the next minute, he walks through the doorway, this huge, radiant, glowing white mist, and then the mist would just drop away and I would see him standing there. And he always would wear the most favourite clothes that I liked him in. And so I just it was sort of bittersweet because as I started to evolve spiritually, and I would have meditation classes at home and development classes at home, and he would always be interrupting. And my friends would say, you've got to get rid of him, you're holding him back. And he would get very angry with that. And he would say, I have chosen to be with you through this time. No one can tell me what to do. And so I was introduced to, into channeling. I was introduced to beings that I would never have imagined. I was introduced to what we call alien beings. Through all of those, they shared what their life was about on the other side. And for instance, I said to him one day, how do people recognise each other on the other side? Do you look like you do now? And he said, no. He said, we all are orbs of light. And he said, and each orb is a different colour. So we vibrate at a different colour. And he said, so we're recognised by the colours of our energy field, by our orbs. And he said, often we stay together in soul groups. So we form together like bubbles. And he said, so we sort of float through the universe in this soul group form. And he said, so when a member of your soul group has been reincarnated, you know that it comes from this, this sort of wormy look of bubbles. And it was really, really interesting. And then I said, well, as he took me to different planets, I'd say, but I've never heard of this planet. He said, no, because you live in a one universe consciousness. You just think there's one universe. But there are many universes beyond the universe. So what your scientists see or your astrologers see or astronomers see is nothing, because they're only looking at this minute particle of a universe. So he said the planets I'm taking you to are planets where you have come from and I have come from. So I'm really taking you home to different aspects of yourself. It sounds really complicated, but because I've experienced it and it's been explained to me, I understand it totally and fully.
Right. Yeah, it's a amazing story, and that turned into a book. Was that the start of, or the inspiration behind Messages of Love?
It is, and here it is here. This is our book, because as the events were unfolding, I remember I worked in a medical clinic, and I remember the psychologist at the medical clinic rang me to see how I was coping, and I said, yeah, I'm doing okay, it's all right, I'm doing okay. But, what's happening, the events that are unfolding, I said, are really beyond my explanation. And they're beyond what I ever dreamt could possibly, happen to me. And I said to him, I think I have a book I need to write. And he said, your book will be a book of healing. And he said, you do have to write it. And I said, but it'll be a very personal book. I said, it's one that I will bear my soul, my heart and soul, that it's not one where I can hold back. If I'm going to write my story, it has to be the whole story and nothing but the truth. And I said, and that's going to be very hard, but I know I have to do it. And so I sat down, and every day, from 3 months before he passed over, I started writing a diary. And I had 42 journals by the time I finished to write this book. 42 journals. So it wasn't so hard to write the book, because I could just go, I already had written it, if you know what I mean. Yeah. I just had to put it on paper. But I thought, oh, this will be easy. I'll be fine with this. But David, let me tell you, there were days I would be on the computer, and I was on there day in, day out, writing this book in a house I was renting with the owner of the same name of the boy.
Oh.
So this was just, in itself, do. But there were days that I cried so much. I had a bucket on the floor beside me, and I would cry until I vomited. Day in, day out, reliving this story. Writing, crying, vomiting. There were times I just had to take a break, go outside, draw in some breath, bring in some courage, and then I would come back on the computer and start again. So it wasn't an easy book to write, but I'm just so blessed to have written it.
Yeah.
I feel blessed to have been given these experiences to be able to share.
How would you summarise the story of the book? It's about two children, isn't it?
No, that's The Angel in My Dreams. That's the first there. That's the children's book.
Right, that was the first in the series.
Messages of Love. How would I explain? I'll talk about Messages of Love first. It's the story of unrequited love. It's the story of a love that goes beyond the sands of time. It's the story of a young girl who at 10 was raped, who at 13 manifested a disease of the uterus, cancer. At 16 was told she could never have children. Finally managed to, after, many, many years, have children. But in that meanwhile, I had other things that happened. The death of my brother-in-law. My husband was driving the car. My brother-in-law was killed. I became anorexic. So there was a lot of things happening in my life. And why I shared those the reason was, as I wrote about it in the book, I didn't just say this happened to me. I said this is why I manifested this.
Right.
It wasn't about what somebody else did. It was what I did to myself.
Mm-hmm.
And in one of the little paragraphs, I wrote about, why do I make myself a dartboard for everyone just to throw their darts? Why am I giving them permission to wound me with darts?
Yeah.
And I just said, enough's enough. Get a grip, girl. The time comes when you have to move on and you have to let go of the past and embrace the future and embrace the now. So I guess that was one of right through the message is through the whole book is, I guess, to come home to who you are.
Mm.
Come home to yourself. And also through the whole thing, he's there, he's coming in, he's coming out, he's pushing me here, he's pushing me there. Everything is leading on that map I was talking about earlier. And he stayed until he brought me my one and only. And he fulfilled his promise. And it just so happened on a sunny summer hot day, that one and only walked through the door where I was having a champagne and I was channeling Archangel Michael. And Archangel Michael said, you have a new love coming. And, I did have a new love coming, little did I know. And as unbeknownst to me, my husband Chris was sitting at the bar. He was on holidays and a male voice said to him, see that lady over there, you have to meet her. And he looked around for the voice and he couldn't see a voice at all. Anyway, to cut a long story short, we met and he said, what do you do? Oh, I talk to dead people. I thought, this will scare him off, but it didn't. And I said, I've just finished writing a book and it's a love story. And it's a love story between someone in heaven and someone on earth, because Messages of Love is a love story. And he said, do you have a publisher? And I said, no, I don't. And he said, well, I'm a publisher and I'm going to publish your story. And 10 days later, the cover was done and the rest is history. And now we're married and, that's the way it is. So to answer your question earlier about the angel in my dreams, from what I learnt through the boy and my guides and, everybody else on the other side, I was able to then write that into a children's book. And I didn't want to write a children's book. I don't actually even like writing books, to be honest with you, David. But it seems part of the map, the plan, that I have no choice.
Yeah.
And I dreamt about it. And in the dream, I saw a little girl and a man in a bookshop. And they had two books. And I said to the little girl, oh, what are you buying? And she said, oh, look at my book. It's got an angel on the cover. And I said, oh, show me. And I saw The Angel in My Dreams, written by Jen-Irishu. What? Hold on. I didn't write that book. And then I said to her father, what have you got? And he showed me his book. And it said, The True Story of Jesus and Mary, written by Jen-Irishu.
Wow.
But I didn't write those books. I've not written those books. It wasn't until 2 years later that I was in the kitchen here and a male voice said to me, it's time to write your book. Oh, well, what book? The Angel in My Dreams. But I don't know what to write. I don't want to do it. So for 4 hours, the boy, followed me around. Jen, it's time to write your book, but I don't know what to write. Go on up to the computer and type in the title. So, all right, up I go, type in the title, The Angel in My Dreams, written by Jen-Irishu. 10 days later, it was finished. I had no idea from nighttime till I got on the computer the next morning what I was going to write. No idea at all.
So did it actually come through you? Would you?
I think it must have. Think it must have. But it was like I'd already written it, because I actually, when I write, I don't call myself a writer. I call myself an artist, because I actually see everything in pictures. So it's like I'm watching a movie. So as I'm writing, it's like this movie is being shown to me. So I'm literally just bringing the movie into the words. It's really quite bizarre how it happens. And it was a subject that I didn't want to write it. I said, I don't want to write this book. People are going to think it's too sad. Yeah. But it's not sad, Spirit kept saying. It's a happy story. You're going to help so many people with this book. And Angela is a little Australian girl. She's 11 and she has leukemia. And Eli is 9. He's African and he has AIDS. And the 2 kids are taken through the 7 colours of the rainbow. And each colour is a story within the story. So the first colour red, they meet up with their grandparents who have passed over. The reason why this has come first is to help them understand that when their time comes to pass over, no one is alone. You are not alone. Someone is always there to take you through the light, to take you home. So the whole idea of that colour red is just to bring comfort to the children. Understand this, but I guess to the families who are, grieving even before their little ones are ready to pass over. And then the next one is orange, and that's where the animal kingdom, and out bounds Teo the dog and Maya the cat and Bugsy the rabbit. So their little pets are all, have come back to join them.
Yeah.
And so once again, Teo, Bugsy, they're just in absolute, to be joined up again with those they thought were lost. So the whole book is magical and it's mystical, and there's, they've got 2 angels, Kari and Manu, and Kari and Manu are with them through the whole journey, And they even get into trouble in the nature kingdom. 2 bad goblins, naughty goblins, come out from behind the forest, and they try to tempt them with lollies and chocolates. And because the kids have been so sick and they've not had lollies and chocolates, little Eli from Africa, of course, this is a luxury to have chocolates and lollies. And he says, oh, please, Angela, can we go off, and have some, well, the goblins aren't quite as nice as what they appear to be, and they grow warts and, all this. And the kids all of a sudden realise that they've been lured into this place of, darkness, and they take off, and then they finally come to their angels and they say to the angels, why did you let this happen to us? And the angels said, we told you not to go off the pathway. We did warn you, but we were always near. You were never alone. Yeah. And so the reason why I wrote that is because children are so trusting, and unfortunately in our world we can be a little bit, it doesn't take much for somebody to say, out in front of the schoolyard, come with me, I've got, lollies for you, I'm going to take you home to mummy. So I'm trying to, through the whole book also teach little lessons here and there. So
So the book quite rocked the boat of some in the schools business, didn't it? It caused quite a few problems. Can you tell us about that?
Well, it did, because although I actually had a book launch in one of the schools, and the children in the higher grade had gone through the story from the manuscript through to the illustrations. And I have to say, the illustrations alone, although they're probably not, when you have a book with a storybook and you imagine all these really beautiful illustrations, although they are, but they weren't exactly how I pictured these watercolour. But the lady who was guided to come to me to do those illustrations illustrated this whole book and the book number 2, a lady who was nearly blind.
Wow.
So there's the drawings that she has done with so much love, and I could not say, they're not the watercolour pictures that I imagine, but they are filled with love. Her work. But anyway, so the kids had gone through from the manuscript and then the artwork, which I took the original sketch and then the black and white and then the colour, and so finally we got to the published version, which is this that my husband published with the 2 angels on the cover, and Angela and Eli. And the kids had decided they wanted to give me a book launch. So Chris went and dropped off lots of books to the school. All got together, the higher class, and they painted their hands with rainbow-coloured paint and made huge wings from each handprint on this angel. Oh, it was just, it hung from the ceiling nearly to the floor, this divine angel. And they had a throne there with a crown, and they made angel cakes, and they dressed up as angels and they sang in the arms of the angels, and some beautiful songs. The kids all sat down on the floor and they asked me questions about death and dying. And a little girl was there and she whipped off her wig. No one knew she was wearing a wig, and she was totally bald, and she said, I have cancer and I have no hair, just like Angela. And so we were able to bring her into the conversation about, how do you feel about this? And the kids were saying, are you worried that you're going to die, and everything else? And, is my granddad going to be waiting for me when I die? And, I've got an imaginary friend, and I can see that imaginary friend. And it was just so stimulating. Like I sat there and cried so many times because I was so humbled by this. From that first group of kids, I ended up going through the whole school. I was there the whole day, right down to the little dots, who spoke about their crystals and once again their imaginary friends. And we had a big group hug, and it was the worst thing I could have done because we all nearly killed each other. But it was divine. And then so I was invited back on the Monday, and I was so excited, and I thought, this is, I really felt like I had connected with this school. And I walked in, and I was asked to go into the library, where I was met by a room full of adults. And I thought, maybe they want to know about my story. I was then approached by one of them, and I was asked to leave the premises because the one I was approached by had gone in my website and deemed me to be a witch.
Yeah.
And she had then got in contact with all the other parents and brought them all together in the library, and I was asked to go to the headmaster's office. I was escorted to the headmaster's office, where I was asked to leave the school. That affected me deeply, as you can imagine it would. I sat in my car and I just cried. I just thought to myself, how can this be possible in this day and age, where we who are trying so hard to I guess, bring the message of love out to these beautiful children who are only open and want to talk about it, how we can still be crucified or burnt at the stake in 2000. This was 2013. Interestingly enough, and sadly enough, I only found out yesterday that that lady who had me escorted off the property out of the school, her son now has leukemia.
Oh, that's so sad.
To my sister, I just can't believe that this has happened. And I just pray that my little book will be able to help them through this process, this whole process.
Yeah, I just wonder if they
So
did they see it as a
life
threat?
works in mysterious ways.
Was it seen as a threat to the educational establishment? I don't know. It's very unfortunate that it's seen that way.
Well, they wrote to the education department, and the education department wrote to me and said that I was not welcome in any other school. I'm not, I think maybe spiritualism or New Age, that's what they called me. I think it may be something that's still, in Australia especially, not quite accepted as much as if I went in and said, look, I'm a Catholic and I want to talk about God, I probably would have been accepted more than someone who still spoke about the Creator, but in an entirely different light. And it's sad, David. It saddened me. And I have to say that I pulled back from the whole story and the whole book, and I went into, I guess, a fear-based depression in a way, because I got angry. I thought, well, why did God want me to write this book when I'm getting into so much trouble over it? But I don't go into that for very long. Yeah. And I started doing radio and speaking on radio about it, and then we got it into the bookstores, and and we went from there. The children absolutely love it. It's the adults who were, I guess, confronted by the first page. So I literally rewrote the book to soften it a bit. So instead of saying Angela wondered what it was like to die beyond the galaxies and the stars, I had to change it to Angela wonders what's on the other side of the rainbow.
Right.
Because I don't have any fear of death and dying. Because the boy and all my spirit friends have shown me and taught me there is nothing to fear. And so in my heart, when I wrote the book, it wasn't something that was challenging to me. But I realised that because I feel that way, it's not everybody else's way.
Yeah. So,
yeah.
Some people have a fear of death, don't they? And it must be comforting for someone in your situation, what you know and what's been shown to you, that it's not... Obviously, the people who are left are grieving for the person that has gone, but it's what happens afterwards.
Oh, absolutely. And this may sound a little bit hard to say this, but I'm going to say it. When we lose a loved one, the grief is often about ourselves, because all of a sudden we are left alone. So often we go into that space of, how dare they leave us? Look at me now. I'm all by myself. So, the conversation that we say, this inner conversation, often isn't about the one who's passed over. It's the situation we've been left in.
Yeah.
I was told 3 years ago that my life would be, I did not probably have very long to live. And so when I had my first cardiac arrest, as I was going and losing consciousness and going, going, I was just totally at peace. I was totally, like the nurses and the doctors were, and, rah, rah, rah. And I was just in this space of euphoria. I thought, oh, thank God, finally. Finally I'm leaving the earth.
Home at last.
Yeah, home at last. Beam me up, Scotty. And I was so shocked when I woke up and I came out of it and I went, oh, no, I'm still here. But it was, and I dreamed everything that happens in my life, even as to what I to eat, to what vitamins I need to take, to what I have to wear. I dream it. I dream everything like a day or 2 days before. So I had already dreamt that this was going to happen. So I had prepared myself. I'd literally said goodbye to my children. I'd written a letter, that I needed to write. I had really tied up my loose ends, or so I thought. And it wasn't till, as I said, here I am back again, that I realised, well, there's still a lot of roads on my map.
Yeah, that's some people. I just wonder. It's probably an unanswerable question, but I have an openness, I hope, and a respect, but maybe not the level of awareness that some people do. And I think maybe there are a lot of people like that, and I don't know if there's something they can do to open up more, or is it just a matter of being interested and asking questions and developing on the path an individual path that we all have. Everyone's unique, aren't they, on where they're going, and so it's inspiring for me to listen to yourself and find out a bit more about that. But some people are closed off, some are a little bit open. It's all very much an individual thing, but I hope they'll be inspired by what you're saying and gain some progress in their own path about that. So we were talking.
Sorry, David, just to interrupt here, but I think too I had a near-death experience.
Right.
And when I was in hospital at 27 to have a hysterectomy. Through my operation, although I should have been totally out to it, I have full recollection of leaving my body and going through a tunnel. It was at the speed of, zoom. It was just incredible. It was like being sucked into a vacuum cleaner, I guess, how I could explain it. When I came out of that tunnel, there was the most beautiful garden. It was a beautiful garden. There was a waterfall and there was a patch of lawn in the middle of this beautiful forest garden. It was very, very pretty and the birds were chirping and rah, rah, rah. And there was a garden seat. And I found myself sitting on that garden seat. And I looked around and I thought, I wonder where I am. And all of a sudden I felt someone sit next to me, and it was my brother Jesus. And I looked at him and I said, where am I? And he said, you are at the land of the in-between. And I said, in between what? And he said, life and death. And he said, you have the choice, and you can make that choice of what you wish to do. But I want to show you something first. And like a picture screen came up. And I was also able to share this in the second book of Angel in My Dreams, called The New Adventures of Angel and Eli, where the children have now passed over and they join up with other children. But in that journey, going through the colours again, they are given their life review. And that's so I put the screen up in the book, like exactly how I had. So on that screen, I was shown my coffin, and it was covered in red roses, and my two children, who were babies at the time, crying over my coffin. And I looked, and took so many years to hold them in my arms. And I looked at JC and I said, I have to go back. I can't leave them without a mum. And as quickly as I was sucked out, I was brought back in. And obviously the operation continued, and it wasn't probably till about 3 years later I had that recollection of what happened in that dream. But in that space, the peace was just beyond anything that I could ever describe.
Yeah.
The peace and that feeling of love. And I guess that's what taught me to not ever fear death and dying.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. Interesting that you were given a choice, and it was a conscious choice to come back and.
Which was interesting, because in my life I don't seem to be given choices. And I think they've sort of blackmailed me a little bit, because I'm sure that there was no way I was going to die on that table. But I think it wasn't about given the choice. It was showing me the experience so I can share that experience.
Right.
I think it was just a little experiment and a little, a bit of education as to what can happen after you pass over. And so I have found that I have now people who are stuck, I guess, in a way, coming to me and asking me to help them pass over.
Yeah.
And they leave me messages to give to their loved ones.
Right.
So it's such an honour to be able to, for instance, I had a lady came in a dream only about 4 weeks ago, and her son was behind her and she had her back to him. So they were like this. And I saw that her hair had been shaved. She was wearing black. So I thought to myself, wearing black, okay, she's on the other side. Shaved head, okay, she's had cancer. Like I was trying to put all the symbols together. And she gave me a message for her son. It so happened the very next day I was introduced to her son. I had never met him before. And I said, do you have a mother who has not long passed over who had cancer? He said, I do. And I said, was her hair shaved and, she was about this tall? He said, yes, that's exactly. I said, she wants me to tell you this. And he just broke down and sobbed. Not because of sadness, for relief that his mum was okay.
Yeah.
Another, can I just share this one with you?
Sure.
This only just happened this week. A lady connected with me on Facebook. I had written something on Facebook. Every day I try to write something inspirational. I'm not one of those ones who, just puts my family or what I'm eating for breakfast. I really try to inspire whoever wants to read it, to have them stop and think for a moment and say, yep, I needed this today. That's my reason for being on Facebook. Anyway, I wrote something about the afterlife. I wanted to share something that happened to me. And this lady came in on my Facebook page and she said, thank you so much for sharing that. I needed that today. And she said, you've brought me a lot of comfort. All of a sudden, I could smell a very strong cigarette smell. I thought, well, there's no one smokes in here. Where is this coming from? And the next minute I heard in my head, I have a message for that lady who wrote to you on Facebook. I am her son. Oh, what do you want me to do? Can you please tell her, send her a personal message and say I would like to speak to her? I said, oh, all right then. So write her a message. Within 30 seconds, an answer came back. Yes, please, can you give me his message? Halfway through the message, and it was a really beautiful message because I was gathering through the message that he may have committed suicide. But his whole message was one of not, I'm in hell for committing suicide. It was, I am in a beautiful place of love and healing. The whole message was filled with just absolute, love and light, and nothing was dark. And then he showed me through my third eye a train. So I thought, oh, how am I going to approach this? So I said, did he like trains? And she came straight back to me and she said, no, he didn't like trains. He put his body under a train. But this story has a really beautiful ending and beginning. This boy, this man, was in the Navy and he had been bullied, badly, badly bullied. And he was deeply unhappy. And not only that, he was very, very spiritual. And he was an empath, which means he feels things. So he felt a deep sadness for what's happening on the earth at this time. He felt a deep sadness to what human beings do to the animal kingdom. He felt a deep sadness for the environmental changes. This boy was really, really probably too soft to be on this earth. And so for 6 months before he finally took his own life, he shared this with his mother. And for 6 months, they did all the things that they'd never done before. All the special things that they wanted to do. Went down the beach and had fish and chips, and they went to the amusement park and went on the Ferris wheel as adults, and all those kind of things they did. On the morning that he took his life, he went to his mother and he said, I want to tell you I love you. He said, because, Mum, you deserve to hear it. He said, because you are the most beautiful person that I have ever met, and I don't think anyone's told you. And he said, I've given all my possessions away, and I just want to give you one last hug. And she said it was the hardest thing that she's ever had to do. But she said since he's passing, he comes to her all the time. And he guides her and gives her messages. And like she said, although he's not with me in the physical, he's with me, in ways that I could never have imagined. Yeah. So I guess this sad story has a really beautiful, journey through the whole thing.
That's right.
What do you think?
Yeah, it's I can have some understanding of how important that is and what a treasure it is. But a lot of people who maybe aren't open to these things, they would think that's the end and the grieving process starts. But to have a continuing association, I mean, you know about that from your own life, but that lady, that must have made an amazing difference to her life, and it's just great to know that these things can happen and make such a difference. To them.
And I think, David, that is why I write the books I do. Yeah. That is why I do the work I do, because, grief is just heartbreaking. Grief breaks the heart. Grief can cause heart attacks. It causes heart disease because, I remember when the boy died and a girlfriend said to me, how do you feel? And I said, imagine the biggest oak tree that you have ever seen, hundreds of years old. And this gust of wind, this cyclone comes through and rips it out of the ground. And I said, and you look into the ground where that tree once, the roots of that tree once were that huge, huge hole. So that's what my heart feels like.
Yeah.
An empty, empty hole. And it's just when you can hand over these beautiful messages from loved ones in spirit, and you watch the healing process happen before your very eyes. Your very eyes, because, David, we're wounded souls. We're walking soldiers. Don't you think?
Yeah. There's so much, and it's it's inspiring to me that there are yourself and other people that do this work. They've been sent to help by spirit or whatever, or whoever someone wants to call that entity. That there is more than you can see in front of your face, and these things can transform your life, and it's maybe a part of you is grieving, but another part is still in communication. So I think that would be tremendously helpful to a lot of people. But I think we're approaching the end of our time today, Jan. I can't believe an hour's gone. It's just, I know we could talk for a lot longer. I hope this is the first of many of such programs. I feel I've just so many more questions to ask you, and you have a lot to say about them. Is there anything you want to share with us in these last couple of minutes that you haven't shared before? Or
oh, goodness. I do. I would like to share this journey that I had one very hot summer day. Well, it wasn't a day, it was the evening. You and I have spoken about this before, but our listeners and viewers don't know this story. We talked about the love that I found on the other side. But this was one experience that I will never forget until my dying days. It was January, hot summer over here. My daughter had been out with her friends. She wasn't home. I was starting to panic. It was getting close on 2 a.m. And so I was lying in bed waiting for her to come home. Then all of a sudden I heard her walk through the front door and I went, oh, thank God, you know. So I rolled over on my right-hand side. I was only like seconds on my right-hand side, and I felt my third eye open. Now, I'm going to backtrack just a little. The boy and I worked through music. When he was alive, we worked through music. We loved music. That was our little, game we played, pick the song. And after he died, it was still the same. He would flash my car battery signal on the inside of my car if I had to turn up the radio. There's a lot more I can share with you on that, but I won't right now. And so on the way home from work, I heard Phil Collins singing Something in the Air. Oh, Something in the Air. Okay. So I just kept that with me. It so happened that I just finished reading a book about a lady who astral travelled underwater, and she found she was able to breathe. So I thought, that's interesting. I had to read this book, obviously. So anyway, as I went out, I was projected out through my third eye. I have full recollection of it. Once again, like a vacuum cleaner sucked me out. I was taken to see over into a girlfriend's house. I noticed they were having a birthday party, which I had confirmed later on that actually happened. I was catapulted straight up into the sky. It was dark. I looked across to one side, I saw the sun. I looked across to the other side, I saw the moon. And I'm like, oh, look at this, the sun, the moon, the stars, it's blue here, it's black there. I was very well aware of everything that was going on. The next minute, before I knew it, I was like a bird, like an aeroplane, straight down back to earth. I could see myself approaching the ocean, and I thought, oh, no, I'm going to hit the ocean, and I'm going to drown. Oh, no, you're not going to drown. You just read that book. That lady didn't drown. So as I hit the water, I let go of the fear of drowning and allowed myself to be taken into the bottom, right to the bottom of the ocean. And I could hear Ringo Starr singing Octopus's Garden, and I was just approached by whales and dolphins and angelfish, and I was patting them and telepathically speaking to them, and it was like, oh my goodness gracious, like this is a world that I never knew existed, but this deep in the ocean. The next minute I was taken back, straight back up into the sky, and sun, moon, dark, light, okay. There was a little cottage in the dark. It was as if it was just floating in the universe. And there was a man standing out the front, and I called him Abraham Lincoln because he was dressed very much early 1900s, I guess. The brown vest with the white shirt and the quite coarse clothing. And I said, oh, who are you? What am I doing here? And he said, I have a surprise for you. And I said, oh, do you? And he said, I have been sent by God, and this surprise has been sent by God because we know how sad you are. Mm-hmm. And I said, oh, and he said, go through that door. I walked through a door, and it was like a little, just a small room, nothing in there, no furniture, and there was another door. And my guide, I guess, said, open the next door. And when I opened the next door, this golden rays just came out of the door and absolutely engulfed me in this golden rays. But it was a huge orb of light. The whole orb filled this tiny little room. Can you imagine, how big it was? And I was immersed in this golden orb, and the boy's voice came out of that orb. And we spoke for so long, the two of us, and I begged him to keep me there. And he said, you can't stay, you have a new love coming. And I said, but I've got you, we can do our work together, I can do it from here, please, I begged him. But in all of that process, the love, I can say it a million times and it will never get across, the love that was in that golden orb of light. And when I was brought back into my body and I was lying there, I was just filled with this, I think it changed my whole life.
Yeah. Wow.
I know it changed my whole life.
Okay, so...
And I just wanted to share that because, wherever we go, there is just only love.
Yeah.
We are just only love. There is only love. So that's what I would like to finish. Your love, I'm love. It's a word we can use loosely, but it's a word that's all encompassing. And I think, we need to start to use it more often and use it from here, the heart, not from here.
Okay, well, Jan, thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you, David. Thank you so much. And we'll talk to each other again soon.
I'll really look forward to that.
God bless you.
Bye for now.
Bye.
Bye for now.
Bye.